What hadn't you tried? You were already a huge success.
Climbing Mount Everest in the nude is all.
Michael J. Crocodile Dundee.
It's been.
You going to let him do that? Stop
If he wants to. Never. Safaris.
And I'm sure
See those rocks sticking up there? They're standing up there for 600 million years. Still be there when you and I are gone.
my wife doesn't care how many beautiful women that I have love scenes with in the movies. She won't. It's not a matter of what she'd let me do. It's whether she'd be happy about it or not. I'm an angel.
You're one of the biggest movie stars in the world. You have millions of dollars, fans everywhere, and you just made one of the most successful movies ever. But deep inside, you're living a nightmare that nobody knows about. This is the shocking true story of Paul Hogan, the man who made us all fall in love with Crocodile Dundee, and how his dream marriage turned into his worst mistake. At 85 years old, Paul Hogan has finally opened up about something he kept hidden for decades. The marriage that everyone thought was perfect was actually tearing him apart from the inside. Today, we're going to tell you the whole truth about what really happened between Paul and Linda Kozlowski, and why he now calls their 23 years together the biggest regret of his life. But first, let me take you back to where it all began. It was 1985, and Paul Hogan was already famous in Australia. He had his own comedy show called The Paul Hogan Show, where he played this funny, laid-back Australian guy that everyone loved. But Paul wanted more than just being famous in Australia. He dreamed of making it big in Hollywood, just like so many other actors. That quote S when he decided to make Crocodile Dundee. Paul didn't just star in the movie, he also helped write it. He put everything he had into this film because he knew it was his one shot at making it in America. Little did he know that this movie would change his life in ways he never expected. When they started filming Crocodile Dundee, Paul met a young American actress named Linda Kozlowski. She was 27 years old, beautiful, and full of dreams. Linda had just graduated from a fancy acting school called Juilliard, which is one of the best schools in America for people who want to be actors. But like thousands of other young actors in Hollywood, she was struggling to find good roles. The part of Sue Charlton in Crocodile Dundee was Linda's big break. She played an American reporter who goes to Australia to write a story about a crocodile hunter named Mick Dundee. When Paul first saw Linda, he knew he was in trouble. Even though he was 46 and she was only 27, there was something special about her that he couldn't ignore. Paul later said in an interview, "I knew I was in trouble the moment I saw her. Linda was smart, beautiful, and I just couldn't resist her." Linda felt the same way about Paul. She said that when they acted together, everything felt so natural that she forgot the cameras were even there. Paul's sense of humor and warmth made her feel safe and comfortable. As they worked together every day, their feelings grew stronger. When the cameras were rolling, they were perfect as Mick and Sue. But when the cameras stopped, everyone could see that something real was happening between them. The way they looked at each other, the way they smiled, and how they took care of each other made it obvious that this wasn't just acting anymore. But here's where the story gets complicated. Paul Hogan wasn't single when he fell for Linda. He had been married to a woman named Noeline Edwards for almost 30 years. They got married way back in 1958 when Paul was only 19 years old. Noeline had been with Paul through everything. When he was just a regular worker at Sydney Harbor, she stood by him. When he was struggling to make it in show business, she supported him. Together, they had 5 children and what looked like a strong, lasting marriage. When Paul fell in love with Linda on the set of Crocodile Dundee, his marriage to Noeline was already having problems. Both Paul and Linda always said that their romance only started after his marriage began falling apart. But the timing looked really bad to everyone watching. Paul filed for divorce from Noeline in 1986, right when Crocodile Dundee became a huge hit around the world. What made things even more confusing was that this wasn't the first time Paul and Noeline had gotten divorced. Back in 1981, after more than 20 years together, they split up, but then got back together and remarried just 1 year later. So when Paul decided to divorce Noeline for the second time to be with Linda, people started asking tough questions. Was Linda the real reason his marriage ended? The Australian newspapers, which had always loved Paul and called him a national treasure, suddenly turned against him. The headlines were brutal. They called him a cheater and said he left his wife for a younger woman. Linda, who had been completely unknown before Crocodile Dundee, suddenly found herself being called terrible names. People said she was a homewrecker who destroyed a happy family. The situation got even worse when people realized that while Noeline was left to take care of 5 children by herself, Paul and Linda were appearing together at fancy Hollywood events. They walked hand in hand and on red carpets, smiling for photographers like nothing was wrong. It seemed like they didn't care about all the criticism and anger from the public. Despite all the negative attention, Paul and Linda stayed together. In 1990, they got married in a quiet, private ceremony. Many people thought that after all the drama and fighting, their love must be really strong to survive everything they had been through. Everyone expected them to live happily ever after, just like in the movies. But real life isn't like the movies. From the very beginning of their marriage, Paul and Linda had serious problems that they couldn't solve. Even though Paul was now an international movie star, deep down he was still a traditional, old-fashioned man. When he wasn't working, all he wanted was a quiet life at home with his family. For Paul, nothing was more important than being home with the people he loved. Linda was completely different. She was a modern woman with big dreams and ambitions. After the huge success of Crocodile Dundee, she didn't want to just disappear and become known only as Paul Hogan's wife. Linda wanted to keep acting, travel the world, and build her own career. She wanted to be somebody on her own, not just the woman standing next to a famous man. Paul couldn't understand why Linda wasn't happy. In his mind, she had everything a woman could want. She was married to a rich, famous man who loved her, and she never had to worry about money or anything else. Paul thought Linda should be grateful and just enjoy the life they had built together. He believed that a good wife should focus on her husband and family, not chase after fame and career success. This difference in how they saw life caused huge fights between them. Linda started to feel like she was trapped in her own home. A friend of Linda's later said, Linda felt like she was in prison. From the outside, it looked like she had everything, but inside she felt like she was losing herself. When their son Chance was born in 1998, everyone hoped that having a baby would bring Paul and Linda closer together. Paul was 59 years old when Chance was born, and he absolutely adored his little boy. He poured all his love and attention into being a father. Linda loved Chance too, but having a baby didn't fix the problems in their marriage. If anything, having Chance made things worse. Paul expected Linda to be a stay-at-home mom who would take care of their son and forget about her acting career. Linda felt even more trapped than before. She loved being a mother, but she also wanted to be her own person with her own dreams and goals. As the years went by, Paul and Linda grew further and further apart. They would have terrible arguments about Linda's desire to work and Paul's expectation that she should be happy. Just being his wife and Chance's mother, Linda felt like she was disappearing as a person, while Paul couldn't understand why she wasn't satisfied with the life he was giving her. The problems got worse because Paul was not good at showing his emotions or talking about his feelings. He was a private man who believed that providing money and staying faithful to his wife was enough to show love. But Linda needed more than that. She needed attention, understanding, and emotional support. She needed Paul to really listen to her and care about what she wanted in life. Linda later said that even though she was married, she often felt completely alone. She and Paul would go to public events together and smile for the cameras, but at home, they barely talked to each other anymore. The love and connection that brought them together on the set of Crocodile Dundee was slowly dying. Paul later admitted, I thought I was doing everything right, But sometimes that's not enough to make someone stay. It was his way of finally admitting that he hadn't been the husband Linda needed him to be. He had focused so much on providing for his family that he forgot about Linda's emotional needs and dreams. By the early 2000s, their marriage was in serious trouble. Linda felt suffocated and desperate to escape. She no longer wanted her whole life to revolve around Paul and his career. She wanted to be Linda Kozlowski again, not just Mrs. Paul Hogan. The silence between them grew longer and more painful. Even though they still appeared together in public, anyone who looked closely could see that the spark was gone from their relationship. Photographs from the last years of their marriage tell the whole story. Paul and Linda would stand next to each other at events, but they looked like strangers. The loving looks and gentle touches that used to define their relationship had completely disappeared. They were living like roommates, not like a married couple. Linda tried to hold on for as long as she could, but eventually, she couldn't take it anymore. After years of feeling invisible and unimportant in her own marriage, she made the hardest decision of her life. In 2013, after 23 years of marriage, Linda filed for divorce at the Los Angeles Superior Court. The reason she gave was irreconcilable differences, which is a fancy legal way of saying that they couldn't fix their problems no matter how hard they tried. For Paul, who was 74 years old at the time, the divorce was a devastating shock. Even though their marriage had been struggling for years, he never really believed that Linda would actually leave him. Losing the woman who had been by his side for over 2 decades was almost more than he could handle. People close to Paul said he was completely heartbroken, even though he tried not to show it in public. According to the court papers, Linda asked for her fair share of their money and property, plus financial support, to help her maintain her lifestyle after the divorce. Paul had a reputation for being very careful with money, but he didn't fight Linda's requests at all. He agreed to everything she asked for without any arguments. Some people said it was because he felt guilty about how their marriage had ended, and others thought he was just trying to make the divorce process as easy as possible for both of them. After more than 20 years together, the marriage of Paul Hogan and Linda Kozlowski was officially over. It was the end of a love story that had started so beautifully on a movie set, but couldn't survive the pressures and challenges of real life. Many people were sad to see their marriage end, because they had always seemed like such a perfect couple. But the story doesn't end there. After the divorce, Paul and Linda went in completely different directions, and their choices show just how different they really were. As people. Linda decided she was done with Hollywood forever. She was tired of living in the shadow of Paul's fame and dealing with all the pressure and expectations that came with being married to a movie star. The glamorous parties, fancy events, and bright lights of the entertainment industry no longer appealed to her. She wanted to start over somewhere completely new and different. So Linda did something that shocked everyone. She moved to Morocco, a country in North Africa that was about as far away from Hollywood as she could get. In Morocco, Linda found not just peace and freedom, but also a new love. She met a local businessman named Moulay Hafid Baba, who was several years younger than her. Their relationship started slowly with simple conversations, but over time, they fell in love. With Moulay, Linda started a new business in luxury real estate. She was no longer Mrs. Hogan, living under the shadow of an Australian movie star. She was Linda Kozlowski, an independent, successful businesswoman who was finally free to live her life on her own terms. Pictures of Linda in Morocco show a woman who looks happier and more relaxed than she had in years. Her smile is bright and genuine, and she looks like she's finally found the life she always wanted. Paul, S life. After the divorce was completely different. He stayed in Los Angeles, living alone in the same house in Venice Beach where he and Linda had lived together. But without Linda, the house felt cold and empty, even though Paul was worth more than $20 million and was still considered an Australian icon. He couldn't fill the loneliness in his heart. The once strong and confident man who had conquered Hollywood started to look tired and defeated. Paul developed health problems, including muscle loss that made him look thin and frail. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional pain of losing Linda. He later admitted that despite having fame, money, and millions of fans, he still felt empty inside, especially without Linda by his side. In a rare interview in 2022, Paul opened up about his feelings for the first time. With a voice full of sadness and regret, he said, "I once had everything: fame, fortune, and a wonderful wife. But in the end, I still feel like I lost the most important thing." It was a heartbreaking confession from a man who finally realized what he had lost. Paul also admitted something that showed just how much he missed Linda. He said, "I still think about her every day. Sometimes I wonder if I had changed a little. Would she have stayed?" Behind his tough exterior was a man filled with guilt and deep regret about how he had treated the woman he loved. People close to. Paul revealed that since his divorce from Linda, he has never seriously dated anyone else. He's had a few brief relationships, but nothing that could fill the hole that Linda left in his life. He lives quietly, staying away from the noise and drama of Hollywood. He only appears in public occasionally, and when he does, he looks like a lonely old man, lost in memories of better times. Paul often spends his afternoons walking alone on the beach near his home. It's the same beach where he and Linda used to walk together when they were happy and in love. But now only Paul is there, facing the ocean and dealing with his regret and loneliness. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Morocco, Linda is living the life she always dreamed of. She's free, happy, and loved by a man who appreciates her for who she really is, not for her connection to a famous movie star. Linda has moved on and found peace, but Paul remains stuck in the past, unable to let go of what he lost. Today, at 85 years old, Paul Hogan is still dealing with the consequences of his failed marriage to Linda. Recently, he made a rare public appearance at the premiere of a special edition of Crocodile Dundee, celebrating over 40 years since the movie was first released. Fans were excited to see him, but he looked thin and fragile compared to the strong, confident man he used to be. In an interview at the event, Paul said, "I never thought my little movie would become such a big part of popular culture. I'm grateful for all the love and support from fans over the years." But when someone asked him about his marriage to Linda, his mood changed completely. Paul admitted, "I loved her deeply, but sometimes love just isn't enough. We tried to make it work, but in the end, we couldn't walk the same path together." Even though he once called his 23-year marriage to Linda a nightmare, Paul also said that those years were the most beautiful time of his life. It's a contradiction that shows just how complicated his feelings about Linda really are. Paul is now battling serious health issues, including muscle loss and chronic pain, that make his daily life very difficult. He lives alone, though he maintains a good relationship with his son Chance, who often visits him. The father and son spend time together doing simple, everyday things, and Chance is one of the few bright spots in Paul's otherwise lonely life. Although Paul is no longer actively making movies, he recently said he would like to complete one final project to thank his fans before he officially retires from acting. But time and health may not be on his side. Paul Hogan remains a symbol of a golden era in Hollywood, but his life story is marked by fame, tragedy, and regrets that will haunt him forever. The story of Paul Hogan and Linda Kozlowski teaches us some important lessons about love, marriage, and what really matters in life. It shows us that sometimes love alone isn't enough to make a relationship work. Two people can love each other deeply, but still be completely wrong for each other if they want different things from life. Paul quotes, biggest mistake wasn't falling in love with Linda or leaving his first wife. His biggest mistake was expecting Linda to give up her dreams and identity to make him happy while never really trying to understand what she needed from their marriage. He thought that providing money and staying faithful was enough, but Linda needed emotional support, understanding, and the freedom to be her own person. Linda quote's decision to leave Paul and start over in Morocco shows incredible courage. It would have been easy for her to stay married to a rich, famous man and just accept an unhappy life. Instead, she chose to give up financial security and social status to find real happiness and freedom. Her story proves that it's never too late to make big changes in your life, if you're brave enough to take the risk. Paul quote, Current loneliness and regret serve as a warning to anyone who thinks that fame and money are more important than treating the people you love with respect and understanding. At 85, Paul finally understands what he lost, but it's too late to get it back. Linda has moved on and found happiness with someone else, while Paul is left to spend his remaining years thinking about what might have been if he had been a better husband. This story reminds us that the most important things in life aren't fame, fortune, or public success. The most important things are the relationships we build with the people we love and how we treat them every single day. Paul Hogan learned this lesson too late, and now he's paying the price for his mistakes. So what do you think about Paul Hogan and Linda Kozlowski's complicated love story? Was Paul wrong to expect Linda to give up her dreams for their marriage? Or should Linda have been more understanding of Paul's traditional values? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story as fascinating and heartbreaking as we did, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Stories like this remind us all about the importance of love, understanding, and treating the people in our lives with the respect they deserve. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest videos about the real stories behind Hollywood's biggest stars. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.